So if you could return that, if you have that, we would appreciate it. Thank you. I think if you took the jar, you're required to match it into the jar. Ms. Wilford, is the Credentials Committee prepared to give their numbers in 4 minutes?
And I would agree, but it was just like the second one.
All right. Okay, I'll stop.
I'm not it never works. Because there's always enough people who only think of themselves. Oh, yeah, no. I do not mind the United States. I'm willing to pay for they don't have people. The government bans futures contracts. Well, because these two guys ordered back in 1955.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hunts, yeah.
Order. Order. We're about to have an announcement.
For those of you that are going to stick around a little bit after we're done here, we'd like to talk to you. The Team Tempest team wants to be a bigger team, and we want to talk to you about how you can be a volunteer. We're going to talk about plan strategy. I'm going to try to make it brief, so stick around in here if you can after we're done.
So just like they trade contracts of eggs, turkeys, potatoes, orange juice, watermelon.
All right, guys. I don't mean to sound like a broken record here, but we're getting reports that there's another booth with similar instances of stuff missing. So, if you have taken something from a table and you thought it was just convention memorabilia, please get back to that table so you can pay. Thank you. Baptist theft all the time.
Incidentally, the one thing that you can take with you are those freedom books that were passed out. Take those with you. Talk to Adam Kokesh. He's around here somewhere. Get them signed. Get them out to somewhere. Find them a good home. All right, thanks.
All right, we are called to order. Ms. Wilford, is the Credentials Committee prepared with our current delegate count? Do you know about how long? 5 minutes. All right. Well, I'm going to verify quorum before we do any business. Was it a question or you have business you want to conduct?
I'm waiting for business to be answered.
All right, thank you. While we're waiting, the platform committee is going to give a little instruction. They just aren't going to make any motions until we're done with that. So go ahead, Nathan.
Hello, everyone. Hope we're having a good time and ready to do some more Liberty work here today. So as we're going to get prepared to look at some of the platform committee proposals, I just want to refer everyone, if you haven't had the chance in your delegate binders, to turn to our report and take a look at page 1 and 2, our introductory letter. I know that we kind of jumped into and we've already tackled and passed our small change to the statement of principles, but I think that what our committee wrote before that is perhaps just as important as the proposals themselves. It explains the intent and our goals that this committee kept in mind for every single proposal that we'll be delivering to you, that we wanted to keep our platform to be distinctly libertarian, promoting individual liberty for all, and that we believe that it should stand on its own with minimal outside references. So that was just a unifying goal, and in every single one of the proposals we'll deliver, while we'll kind of take turns introducing the various things, each proposal was a team effort. We worked, I don't know how long on some of these proposals, many hours wordsmithing to very, very much longer than our planned meeting time. So I just want to encourage you all to see the proposals. And also, if you aren't aware, I wanted to point out on page 2 of the report, I had a little table comparison just to show one of our goals was we wanted to trim down and streamline the platform. And I crunched some numbers, and I think we achieved that. If we pass all the proposals as they currently are written, we'll save about 16% of verbiage in our platform, streamlining it and make it a good campaigning document that our candidates can use as a platform, a literal platform to stand on and spring on to expand on the issues and help bring people into the party. And at the very bottom of page 2, we mentioned and actually wrote up the link to where you can view a digital copy of this report, as well as some other versions of viewing our proposals that might be convenient and helpful to you. So if you haven't already seen those, feel free to on your devices bring that up, and you can follow along as we go through these proposals. Do you want to add anything, Carrie? Yes, excellent point. So in one of those documents, we call it a supplemental report, which is a view one by one of the proposals we'll bring, with a comparison side by side of the current versus our proposal. And at the beginning of that supplemental report, we had an outline of all the current planks in the platform. Part of that table is we looked into, and we're reporting the date that those planks were last renewed. The reason why that's important is because in our party rules, after 3 conventions, in other words 6 years, if a plank has not been altered at convention or specifically renewed as is, then it is subject to sunset and is automatically removed from our platform. And so that reports the dates they were last renewed so that we can know when they will be subject to sunset. At this convention, there are 0 planks subject to sunset, and there are only 2 that will be due for sunset at our next convention. So just we can see that, and if there are any questions about that, then we can refer to it at future conventions as well.
All right. Yes. Yes, please.
If we make a stylistic change in a plank, does that reset it? for the sunset or not? I didn't know how we're reading that rule.
No, that's an excellent question. It's one we've thought of and referred to a lot, John and Arthur, to discuss that. And Arthur, or rather John, correct me if I'm wrong, but what came out of our discussion with that was that we will make a motion whenever doing that clerical change, that it's the part of that motion is it's our intent that this change will not count as an alteration. However, it is up to the future body, the future officers, to decide if the rules allow that.
Are we ready, Ms. Wilford? All right, what is our numbers?
We currently have 217 delegates registered or checked in right now. And I would just like to take a moment to kind of brag on this party. At the 2016 convention, we only had one county that maintained a full delegation the entire time. I don't have a final count on how many counties this time have maintained a full delegation the entire time, but there's a lot. We had 218 combined delegates and alternates in attendance at the 2016 state convention. And this time, yes, also your county. And this time, we literally grew by 50%. 50%! That is amazing, guys. A 10% growth would be phenomenal. But we grew by 50%. This message is spreading. We have loads and loads of new people learning about liberty. This room is not filled as much as it was before, but every single person in here, the people who attend state convention are the people who are the most dedicated to growing our party and spreading our message. And we had 50% more people this time than we did last time. And I guarantee you that if we keep growing like this, we will take this state over and this country in no time.
All right, with the reported number of 117, that makes quorum 109. 217, sorry. 217, that still makes quorum 109. And I do recognize a quorum at this time. What are you rising for? Let me ask that.
No, I'm just hanging out right now, sir.
Just hanging out. All right. Let me ask the credentials committee because he is kind of standing here. Do you mind if he just hangs out? Okay. Please continue.
All right, Liberty Lovers, let's get to business. So, if you would bring up, our next proposal deals with addendum, so open document dealing with that. And as we go through here, we will start by letting the body know which section we'll be dealing with, so which proposal we'll be dealing with, and I'll refer you to which page number you can refer, or we will refer you to which page number you can turn into your report. So the addendum is on page 14 of the report in your delegate package. So our proposal, oh, and by the way, before I go into that, one more thing to comment, and that is that of the proposals we'll be presenting to you, 20 of them received unanimous support from our committee, and rules dictate those are the ones that we'll deliver to you first. Then we'll have 3 that had abstentions, at least 1 abstention, and then 3 that had a no vote. So we'll be presenting what we believe are the things that y'all can get most behind first. And in the supplemental report, for transparency, the committee votes are reported. So, addendum. We need to remove it because it's wrong. Please, it will no longer be correct as of this convention. It states when planks were last renewed, so it is no longer accurate. And it's no longer necessary to update because in the documentation our committee has generated, we've reported the dates last renewed of all planks. So it's unnecessary and we need to remove it. It's wrong. That's all I would say. So the platform committee moves. that the addendum be struck from the platform.
I did hear a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on this? Seeing no discussion, is there any objection? Hearing no objection, the motion passes.
Okay, next one. Next one is it's clerical, dealing with the language of LPTexas. So if you could please bring that up. This is an interesting motion that we're making. So the motion is that except for within the preamble in the statement of principles, which this body's already dealt with, we want to replace all text variations that throughout the platform that mention the Libertarian Party of Texas by name with, quote, LPTexas. And we're adding to this that it is the intent of this motion that planks affected only by this clerical change not be considered altered at this convention according to LPTexas rules. And as such, don't have their 6-year sunset period reset. And as was discussed earlier, we're just stating our intent as part of this motion. It's up to the future officers and convention bodies to decide if they follow that. So the platform committee moves that throughout the platform, variations of LPTexas be replaced, variations of the Libertarian Party of Texas be replaced with LPTexas. And one more comment, the intention or reason for this is that I understand that there was some discussion and questions about if this is maybe the best branding to use for a party. I would just comment that the platform is not necessarily the place for us to decide that. We're just trying to bring clerically the platform to be consistent with what is used in all of our other parties' documents. It could be a good discussion to have, I would say, elsewhere if there's a better branding we could use. But even if we do not pass this motion, then throughout the platform, we'll still have LP no dash Texas. So this just cleans it up to make it easier to read, essentially, not as wordy.
Point of inquiry.
Yes.
This is just a quick technical question. We had to divide the previous one to a separate vote, specifically for the abbreviation. Is this considered one whole document altogether, so we don't have to again define what LPTexas abbreviation stands for?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
So the platform committee moves this motion.
There's been a motion. Is there any discussion on this motion? There's discussion.
Yes, Ted Brown from Travis County. I would like to move that instead of changing Libertarian Party of Texas to LPTexas throughout, that we just say we and change the gender or the tense accordingly. It seems like why should it be in the third person? It's our document. It should be we support this, we advocate this, we hold this to be true, whatever, rather than saying it in the third person. So I would suggest it's like the national platform does we believe this, we believe that, so I suggest we, or I propose we as an alternative.
Are you making an amendment?
Yes.
Or okay. There's been an amendment to, oh gosh, let me strike LPTexas in this motion and change and insert we. Is that
Correct, yes.
encompass your motion?
Right.
Okay. Is there a second to that amendment? There is a second. Is there objection?
Objection.
There is objection. Do we want to go into discussion?
I have a question, sir.
Yes.
Is it appropriate to call the question at this time, or are we too deep now?
No, we can call it. We
I
can
call the question, sir.
All pending questions?
I call all pending questions to vote. Yes.
There's a motion to call all pending questions. Second?
Point of inquiry.
Sir. Sir. Oh, never mind. We got it figured out. Yes.
Point of inquiry. From a legal point of view, I know with contracts, you have to define from here on, we refers to this. If we accept this motion that we now use we, do we legally have to define what we means in this document, or can be assumed?
There's nothing that I'm aware of in law that defines anything about our platform. We could literally put "We love rainbow shoelaces."
I know, but
Yeah.
the definition of is, do we have to define what we mean by we legally for this document?
We do not have to do that.
Thank you very much.
All right. There's been a motion to call all pending questions. We will proceed to a vote on that motion. If you are in favor of calling all pending questions, raise your hand. If you're opposed, raise your hand. Motion passes. We will proceed to a vote on the amendment to strike LPTexas and insert we. All in favor of the amendment, raise your hand. All opposed to the amendment, raise your hand. Amendment fails. We will proceed to adoption of the plank. All in favor of adoption of the plank, raise your hand. All opposed, raise your hand. It passes.
Yeah. All right, so we're on 2-1C, self-defense, page 7. Okay, so our goal here was to strengthen our plank on self-defense. And one of the things that we set out to do was to include property and not just defense of person, but defense of property and also defense of other persons. So that's, you can read there the difference. And then we also chose to enumerate some of the things right now that interfere with our ability to defend ourselves and our property based on current legislation, current existing laws.
Is that all?
Yes, I move to adopt this plan.
All right, thank you. Yes.
Point of information, there's a section mentioned about illegal knife. Is that still applicable given the recent sword? Okay, thank you.
I don't, who answered? Yes, Nathan Watts is saying yes.
I move we.
By the way, I haven't really been saying anything because it's not an important point, but things moved by committee do not require a second because it's already multiple people moving it, so just, yes.
I move we call the question.
Motion to call the question. Is there any objection to calling the question? Point of information? Please approach the mic.
Forgive me, this sounds probably totally silly, but booby traps, how does that work in this stuff here? Yes, booby traps. Are those covered, not covered? How do we deal with that? Yep.
Well, do we consider booby traps to be in accordance with the non-aggression principle?
I think we're getting into the debate on this one. All right. We now, is this a point of information? Okay.
I'd like to know the reasoning from the committee, please, behind including the actual statute. And secondarily, if the statute is able to be changed in upcoming sessions, will there be a mechanism to update that in the future?
So we did actually have this discussion because one of our goals originally was to eliminate instances of this kind of stuff in our platform. However, it was justified to us by another committee member, and we all agreed that this could represent sort of a call to action of the things that we want to now fight against, for example, in the next legislative term. So that's what, yes, and airing of grievances, of course, enumerating rights and things like that. So,
thank you. We will now proceed to a vote on calling the question. Point of order. Point of information.
This is to address the issue of the booby traps. I believe he may have been referring to the use of proportional force in the defense of a person's
Are you
property.
asking a question?
My question is the part about the manner consistent with the non-aggression principle, does that address the issue of proportional force used to defend property?
That's going to be to the interpretation of the reader.
Oh, I see. Okay.
All right. Is there any objection to calling the question at this point? I hear no objection. We will proceed to a vote. Is there any objection? This is point of information or point of order?
I think it's point of information. And and guide me through this. This is my first time to the mic this entire weekend.
Well, welcome.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. Point of information. If section 46 of the Texas Penal Code changes, does that sunset everything underneath that's underlined in that part?
No, it does not.
Okay. I would like to move that just for.
We've already called the question, so at this point we can't make any motions. We will now proceed to a vote on the proposal, sorry. Is there any objection to adopting the proposal? There's objection? All in favor of adopting the proposal, raise your hand. All opposed, raise your hand. Motion passes.
All right, y'all. Next is something dealing with the headers for section 1 and section 2. So you can see this on page 3 and 6. It's just the header, the title, Economic Liberty, and then section 2, Personal Freedom and Civil Liberties. What we are moving to do is, first of all, for section 2, currently titled Personal Freedom and Civil Liberties, we would like to rename that to Personal Liberty. This would mirror economic liberty and just follow the same format. And then also, our motion is that we want to switch the order of these first 2 sections such that personal liberty and all the planks contained within it are delivered first within our platform, then followed by the planks dealing with economic liberty. We, the committee, think that the personal liberty and personal individual rights, that's the most essential basic libertarian principles, and that is also what's going to draw people in faster than discussions over taxation, even though it gets us passionate. So the committee so moves the motion as shown on the screen.
Thank you. Microphone 2.
Mr. Chair, I motion to make a minor, clerical amendment to that motion.
Please say your amendment.
Under what is currently section 1.1.c, the gross margins tax portion that is proposed to be the upcoming first item, that will still be listed as 1.1.c rather than 1.1.a, or in the case of this order change, it would be 2.1.c instead of 2.1.a. Very minor, just, it looks like A and B got struck in the proposal.
Mr. Chair, if I can just say that
Please go ahead.
The section numbering of everything underneath things will automatically be updated. We don't have.
I withdraw my amendment.
Yeah.
All right. Any other discussion? Seeing no other discussion, we can proceed. Is there any objection? Hearing no objection, motion passes.
All right, so the next one we're on is a new proposal titled Property Rights, and it's on page 8. So we are proposing that we add a new plank titled Property Rights, that LPTexas stands firm with an individual's inherent right to own property, examples including land, buildings, belongings, and ownership of one's body and personhood. Property rights are subject to neither infringement nor interference by any individual or governmental entity. Yes, so I move on behalf of the platform committee to adopt this new plank.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Yes, please approach the mic. There's objection, but do you have a debate or discussion? Okay, please approach the mic. While you're getting there, I'm gonna go ahead and recognize microphone 2.
Move to call a question.
I'm gonna, come on. Please.
All right, the point I object to is in 2.2.c regarding HOAs. So I know this is probably a pretty sore.
That's not germane to this. This is only an insertion. It really doesn't affect that plank itself.
I thought we were adopting the entire plank.
That's already an existing plank. It's just kind of shifting them down.
Well, then I apologize. I withdraw.
Thank you.
Move to call a question.
Move to call a question. Is there any objection to calling the question? There is objection to calling the question. We will proceed to a vote on calling the question. All in favor of calling the question, raise your hand. It's not debatable. All opposed to calling the question, raise your hand. Motion passes. We will now proceed to a vote on the plank. All in favor of is there any objection to adopting this plank? There's objection. All in favor of adopting this plank, raise your hand.
Point of inquiry?
Point of information.
Does this not contradict any taxation? If I own my money that's a belonging, this would state that we could have no taxation. Is that correct?
That's to the interpretation of the reader. All in favor of adopting this proposal, raise your hand. All opposed to the adoption of this platform, raise your hand. Motion passes.
Okay, under the property rights main heading, we're entering a whole new section plank called civil asset forfeiture. Yeah! Everybody love that one. It can be found at the very bottom of page 8. And what we have done is, after much discussion, we came up with LPTexas calls for the elimination of civil asset forfeiture, which allows for the unjust seizure of property from the accused without due process. We did put in a single exception where in the case of criminal conviction may be used, but we limit such revenue to be gained from it strictly for restitution instead of in the enrichment of police departments. And we would like to move as a committee that we make the following change and adding this plank into the section previously titled property rights.
Thank you. Microphone 2.
Motion to amend.
Motion to amend. Please state your amendment.
I would just like to replace property with revenue because money taken from us should not be viewed as revenue by the government. Replace revenue with property.
I heard a motion and a second. If the body will stand at ease for just a second while we get that on the screen.
No, keep
No.
property.
Sorry.
Replace revenue on the final line.
Replace revenue. On the left, there we go. And what are we replacing it with? Please state it.
Property.
Property. Okay, is that Elliot? Elliot,
Yeah,
is that correct? Okay. I did hear a second in there.
yeah.
Is there? Oh, hold on.
The committee has no objections to this particular amendment.
Thank you. Is there any objection to this? Hearing no objection, the amendment passes. Is there any objection to the proposal? I'm sorry, did I hear objection? Okay, yes. All in favor? Yes.
Slight correction. It also, I'd skip this momentarily. I thought it was part of the second or the continuation later. But at this point, we are also like to make notice that the motion is to include changing the order of the existing plank, moving homeowners association to the end, and the civil asset forfeiture will fall in the middle between eminent domain and the homeowners association.
Okay, thank you for informing the body. So it's still as it is on screen, he's just talking about an order change. With that said, if there's no further discussion, we'll proceed to a vote on adopting the proposal. All in favor of adopting this proposal, raise your hand. All opposed to adopting this proposal? Motion passes.
Okay, then the final section of this is mostly streamlining the section on eminent domain. We wish to move that the following changes be made. Oh, excuse me. It is section 21J, and it is on page 9. I keep forgetting that. But the new section would now read, under no circumstances should government have the power to force the transfer of land from a private entity to another against the will of the owner. Let's continue on to LPTexas strongly opposes the use of eminent domain to establish toll roads, transportation corridors, and any other projects, public or private. In the second paragraph, LPTexas supports vested property rights above and below the surface, and there shall be no limitation by regulation, ordinance, or authority, period.
Point of information? Yes. Let's wait until the committee is finished moving their proposal, and then we can take that.
We as a committee move that the following, that specific change is made and falls into the correct order, placing eminent domain, was it first? Was it, or, no, under property rights, first under property rights, there we go.
Thank you. Point of information?
May I direct this at the committee?
I'm sorry?
May I direct this question at the committee?
Yes, please.
Yes. Now, eminent domain in particular, I guess the intent from what I understand it is dealing with public uses like schools or highways or whatever. This would imply that we're against eminent domain as a whole. Am I correct in understanding that? Thank you.
All right. Is there any other discussion? I see, yes.
I'd like to speak against.
Yes, please.
I'm actually not completely against. I'm kind of on the fence. But I would like to point out one problem that I see, and that is I realize here that we're trying to say no, never allow eminent domain, but I think the first and third sentences in the current document that we have, as well as the last three words in the blank, they mean to imply that if eminent domain does happen, despite our best wishes, then at the very least, we should have some sort of support for a stronger level of compensation for the victims than presently exists today. And I'm not sure that, I think this sentiment is being removed with the amendment as it's worded right now, and I'm not sure I want that sentiment removed. So I think we should consider that before we vote on this.
Thank you. Is there anyone to speak for the proposal? If the committee wishes to speak, if a member of the committee wishes to speak, yes. Yeah, we got one.
Do you want to respond? Somebody needs to respond.
Yeah, I understand. I understand what you're saying.
I actually appreciate the sentiment of what Curry is saying, Mr. Taylor, sorry, saying, and I guess possibly a proper amendment could include that same sentiment, but we wanted to make sure we convey the fact that we do not believe it should exist. So, and not leave a gray area that if it does exist, it'll be okay as long as XYZ. So I think maybe if it were something along the lines of until such time that eminent domain is completely abolished, we expect, appropriate compensation. But I'll leave that to someone else.
Microphone 2, Ms. Glass. I'm assuming you're speaking against, right?
I have a question for the committee.
Oh, please.
With respect to vested property rights above and below the surface, water is a serious issue in parts of rural Texas, and who owns the aquifer, water in the aquifers, is a hotly contested issue. Who are you saying owns the aquifer water? Because this seems to allow the rule of capture to continue, which means that any property owner above the aquifer can sell off all the water rights underneath everybody's land. He gets all the money, and the others maybe get their aquifer drained. So, had you thought about that?
We did have a slight discussion on it. We were approaching it in the terms of completely regarding to eminent domain. And I think if you look back at the property rights, what we introduced, where that covers one's land, building, belongings, and ownerships of one body and personhood. Even though that, we probably could have, and maybe should have, put it in there. If you would like to make an amendment to re-include that last paragraph, we would welcome.
Well, I'm not willing to do that on the fly. I should have thought about this earlier, but I'm just hoping to point out that this is a very vague issue that needs resolution. Who owns that water? It's kind of an open question. The Supreme Court has ruled on it, but it's not based on anything substantial. It's just what they thought at the time. And you can see conflict.
Ms. Class, your point of information has kind of slipped into debate, so we're going to go to someone else for debate.
Well, I don't know what I'm going to do about this because I think this is an issue.
Are you speaking against? No. Is there someone here to speak against? Someone here to, do you have a, I'm sorry?
Move to amend.
So, what are you rising for? To speak in favor? John Hong.
I'll move to call the question.
Okay, please, you're recognized.
Move to call the question.
All right. Is there any objection to calling the question? There is objection to calling the question. I'm sorry? No. All in favor of calling the question, raise your hand. All opposed to calling the question, raise your hand. Motion fails to gain 2/3.
Move to amend.
Motion to amend, please state your amendment.
I would like to amend the last paragraph where it says supports vested property rights above and below, and insert on there.
Yeah.
Above, on, and below.
Okay, insert the, and I'm guessing some commas, you were meaning above, comma, on, comma, and, okay.
Correct.
The Oxford comma.
So are you proposing three-dimensional property rights right now? Because we're good with that too, you know, if it's.
I'm to the limits of space on the surface and below.
All right, real quick, will you please look at the screen and make sure that that is your amendment?
Correct.
Okay. Is there a second to the amendment?
Yeah.
Okay. So the amendment is to insert after the word above a comma, a space, the word on, and a comma.
The committee does not object to this.
Is the secretary clear on the motion? Yes, in the second paragraph. Okay, are we good? All right. Okay, now with the secretary caught up, is there any discussion or objection to this amendment? Yes, there is objection. You say discussion?
Discussion.
Please approach the mic.
Hey guys, you want to have a really fun Oxford comma debate?
Mr. Farmer, I don't know if that was proper debate, but it was appreciated. So, with that said, is this for discussion of the
I move to call the question.
motion to call the question or all pending questions?
All pending questions.
Motion to call all pending questions. Is there is objection? Point of information.
Would this include mineral rights and natural resources?
I'll let the body answer. All right, we have now had a motion to call all pending questions. We will proceed to a vote. All in favor of calling all pending questions, raise your hand. All opposed? Motion passes. We will proceed to a vote on the amendment. All in favor of the amendment to insert comma space on comma, raise your hand. All opposed to the amendment? The amendment passes. All in favor of adoption of this proposal, raise your hand. All opposed? The proposal passes. Thank you.
Next, we have everyone's favorite topic.
Brett,
That is
can I ask you a question?
Yes,
Will you be
sir.
talking long enough for me to sneak out and grab some water?
Yes.
Thank you. I'll be back.
We are on
This is on page 3 and 4. This is the section on theft. We are attempting here to again streamline.
Point of personal privilege. Can you please state the number of the proposals so we can find the word version?
1.1.A.B. So this covers taxation, government spending, and general taxation. We are combining all 3 of these planks into a single plank, just simply called taxation. The couple of things that I would like to point out in the revisions that we are making, we are adding a clause to say that we support a constitutional amendment that would require 2/3 of each house to increase any rate of tax. So we're trying to make it more difficult to increase the tax rates. We are also, this is an attempt at pleasing everyone, the anarchists and the minarchists, by saying taxation should only be used for services that cannot be provided by free market solutions. The intent of this is that if you are a person that believes roads can be provided by free markets, you now have an excellent platform to speak from to make your argument for the free marketing of roads. If you do not believe roads can be provided by the free market, you may now also argue against that, but you are both compliant with our platform. This, we did take a lot of this out, but we kept that the budgets should be balanced and that taxes should have a specified purpose and they should be subject to sunset instead of just into eternity like other things. So I, on behalf of the platform committee, move that we adopt this motion to streamline the taxation planks.
Do you rise to
Point of information. I move to.
One second.
I move to amend.
Motion to amend.
Motion to amend. Strike the word income between imposition of income tax. Strike the word income. Just have it say we oppose the imposition of tax by any governmental entity.
Okay. Yeah, one second. I want to make sure we get it. Is 1 second? I'll recognize it in a second. Is what's on the screen what your amendment?
That is correct.
Okay, I'll recognize a point of information.
I am wondering whether it's when we speak of constitution, when we speak about legislation, is it specifically the state constitution and legislation we're speaking of, not federal or all?
Okay, all right. Thank you. Is there still a point of information?
Point of information.
Okay.
I just want to verify exactly how far we are going into this taxation portion. If I understand correctly, it's starting from 1.1 taxation going through general taxation, but not going into include gross margins yet. Is that correct?
That is correct. So this proposal ends at the colon, where we would then go into those other items. So the last portion of this is expanding on these general principles, issues specific to the state of Texas, and then we name the other specific taxes.
All right. Are you rise for discussion or on the amendment?
I'm speaking against, but I don't know if you got a chance to speak in favor.
Yes, please.
I'll speak in favor of my amendment. The reason I make this amendment is just to allow a broader reading for the Libertarian Party to oppose all taxes as opposed to just income tax. There are more than just income tax, as we all know, and I believe that many of us might believe that all taxation is theft and not simply income tax is theft.
Is there someone to speak against? Please.
Yes, I speak against because, in my opinion, the purpose of the platform is to unify around the principles we all believe in and not to micromanage to candidates what they say. So this puts candidates in a situation where they're having to defend no tax. We are a party that's based in principle, but some of our candidates have different opinions, different ways of saying things. So if they point to this platform and it looks anarchist, that may not be in the candidate's own interest. So we want to give discretion to candidates to make their own statements, and by removing that word, I think we're putting them in a box.
Thank you. Is there somebody to speak in? I'm going to recognize the.
I would like to address Mr. Dixon. The platform is not here for the candidates. The platform is here for the party.
Mr. McKinnon, in the future, I'm going to ask you to address the chair. All right. I'll take that as speech in favor. Is there anyone to speak against? Please. Oh, sorry, I'm coming over here. You've been standing there for a while.
Yes. Okay, so maybe I'm just a little biased. I'm going into tax accounting. I am against an income tax, though. I think that's a huge mess, and whenever you get into income taxes, especially on the state level, it's bad. So I think that generally, my impression is that if you're in favor of an income tax, you're not a libertarian. That's my opinion. We can all, I would see, kind of agree with that. Now, as far as no taxation, I would say that goes a little bit too far and would put us, as Mr. Dixon said, into the anarchist ideals. So I would not favor necessarily the idea of no taxation. But I wouldn't go so far as to say that we should enable taxation. So like the other poll of the original proposal of taxation should be used for only services that cannot be provided by free market solutions. Why this goes to the amendment is this idea of, appeasement of both parties. We can't say no taxation, then also say that we have taxation for only things that the free market can't provide, because then it is very biased and based on one camp kind of idea. Thank you.
I'm going to recognize a member of the committee again.
Thank you. Just a few things to note that the committee has been discussing here at the table. We do feel like this amendment would create some additional conflicts with the other verbiage. To begin with, the first sentence is, all persons are entitled to the fruits of their labor. And because that is the preceding sentence, that is the reason that we are then explicitly naming income tax. Because we started by saying that you are entitled to the fruits of your labor, and as such, your income, being the fruits of your labor, should not be taxed. So that is one of the reasons that we're calling specifically out income tax there. And then to this gentleman's point, also, if you remove income, then later down we're conflicting with ourselves, as we like to do, by saying that taxation should only be used for services. So I do agree with his assessment there. Whitney, did you have anything to add, Whitney?
I'm going to go to microphone 1.
I am for the amendment because the key word is the imposition of tax.
Thank you. Someone to speak against? Please.
So I would like to, if you read through the rest of it, it doesn't make sense if you strike the word income, because we go through different types of taxation lower down. And while I do understand that taxation is theft, I get it, I don't feel that I don't think that it's, that we should strike that word. I think that that's an important part of this statement. And if you read it in context with the whole part of, it's not going to make sense after that. It's just going too far, in my opinion, especially as someone who hears this argument consistently. And then I'd like to call the question if we can.
Yes. There's been a motion to call the question. There's a second. Is there objection? There is objection.
Point of information.
Point of information.
Is this question being called for the amendment or for all pending questions?
That is just for the amendment. Thank you. Point of order.
Can we do this? I was going to ask, can you call the question after you vote?
Yes, you can. All right. Where are we? Okay, all in favor of calling the question on the amendment, raise your hand. All opposed to calling the question on the amendment, raise your hand. We will now proceed to a vote on the amendment. All in favor of the amendment, raise your hand.
Motion to amend.
No, that's not in order. All in favor of adopting the amendment, raise your hand. All opposed to adopting the amendment, raise your hand. The amendment fails. We are back into discussion.
Okay, motion to amend, on the taxation line, as such, we oppose the imposition of income
We're
tax.
having trouble hearing you. If you could get closer to the mic.
I'm sorry, on the line where it says, as such, we oppose the imposition of income tax, I should think we should change that to LPTexas to keep that more consistent with the previous stuff.
Okay. Can you, were you able to hear it? Okay, we're getting on the screen.
Yeah, I just want to change the word "we" to LPTexas to make it more consistent with other stuff. My name is George Hardy.
Is opposes?
To take "we" and change it to LPTexas. Oh, yeah.
Yes, you do want to.
Proper
Okay.
grammar. Yeah.
So your amendment is to change "we" oppose to LPTexas opposes, correct?
That is correct.
Is there a second? Is there?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to call all questions.
Well, yeah, I need to state the motion and you need to be recognized, so stand by. All right. I'm going to back up just a little bit. There's been a motion to amend to strike "we oppose" and insert LPTexas opposes. I did hear a second. Let me ask before we do anything else, is there objection? There's objection. We can go into discussion now.
Mr. Chair,
I'm sorry?
I'd like to call all questions.
Yes. There's a motion to call all pending questions. All in favor of calling all pending questions? I heard a second. Raise your hand. All opposed to calling all pending questions? Raise your hand. Motion to call all pending questions passes. We'll now proceed to a vote on the amendment. All in favor of the amendment, raise your hand. All opposed to the amendment, raise your hand. The amendment passes. We will now proceed to a vote on the proposal. All in favor of adopting the proposal, raise your hand. All opposed to adopting the proposal, raise your hand. The proposal passes.
Okay, so next we're going to talk about more theft. And this is section 11C, and you should find it on page 4. So the motion reads LPTexas, and this is the gross margins theft. LPTexas seeks the complete repeal of the gross margins tax adopted in 2006. Rather than a slow reduction in these franchise taxes, we call for the legislature to reduce the state's constitutional spending limits. This is so moved by the committee.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Sherman, are you approaching the mic for discussion? Okay, I see no one approaching for discussion. Is there any objection to adopting this proposal? Hearing no objection, the proposal is adopted. Are you seeking to be recognized right now?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I move that we extend time on this agenda item by another 45 minutes.
All right, there's been a motion to extend time by 45 minutes.
As it stands, we are scheduled to end this discussion in 6 minutes, just for context.
All right, there's a second. All right, this is not debatable. All in favor of extending time for 45 minutes, raise your hand. This requires 2/3. All opposed, raise your hand. Motion passes. We will extend for 45 minutes.
All right, we are now on ad valorem tax, page 4 to 5, 11E. No, D, 11D. Sorry. All right, so we are first moving to, or proposing that we change ad valorem tax to property tax. A lot of people in the general public do not know what ad valorem means, and when they hear that word, they don't realize that it's a bad thing. So we want we want to call it property tax. And then, of course, the amendment there is to streamline a little bit, and then we also we had the debate that was raised earlier with one of the other planks with regard to, well, it's still happening, and while it's happening, we would like it to happen this way. So we did kind of address that here, that until such taxes are eliminated, we call for a moratorium on the appraisal valuation increases. And we want to have the members of the appraisal review boards to be subject to the Texas election code instead of appointed by their buddies. We also went on to propose term limits for them as well. And again, all of this is between now and the time they actually abolish property taxes. Yes, so the committee is moving to adopt this proposal.
All right, thank you. Microphone 2.
I'd like to make an amendment, please.
Yes.
The poor to the middle class and poor. Teachers get hit by this hard. They're middle class. They're having to move out of their communities that they teach in. So this is no longer just the poor. The middle class and the poor are being devastated by property taxes.
Mr. Ford, please, before you go. So it was to strike the words "the poor," right? I just want to be clear.
No, it's to add the middle class and poor.
Middle class and poor. Let's get on the screen and make sure it's right.
Can I amend the amendment?
Not quite yet. Is that correct on the screen?
That is correct.
Okay. What is your amendment to the amendment, realizing that it has to pertain to those 3 words that were just inserted?
I want to amend his.
Yes.
I'm trying to, maybe you can help me with the wording. Also, it's pushing seniors out of their homes because they don't own it. All Texans, let's just put all Texans. Let's just put all Texans.
Not quite in order. And I'll tell you why. We can only deal with amendments right now that pertain to those 3 words, so we would need to strike more. So I would suggest if you are in favor of that, vote this down, and then we can entertain that amendment.
So moved.
All right.
Call.
I'm sorry? Please approach the microphone. Actually,
Can we just call the question?
Yeah.
Vote it. Call the question.
Instead of saying middle class and poor, because that kind of sounds a bit off-putting, just say middle class and lower income.
We can't amend the word poor right now. It's not germane to those 3 words. So, thank you. All right, if there's any other discussion on this.
Point of information.
Point of information.
Could the gentleman modify his motion to change that to?
We are going to get into a much bigger noodle fest if we do that. Yes.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Yes, I definitely appreciate, as the body does as well, Mr. Ford's suggestion. Yes, it was your suggestion originally. Yes. I think one of the things that we were trying to accomplish here is to overcome one of the biggest obstacles that we have in the public is that we have no feelings and that we're not compassionate. And so we wanted to make sure that we drew attention to the fact that these taxes are actually inequitable. And they, I guess, most dramatically affect poor people. And that's what we get accused of all the time, is that not caring about the poor. So that may be something you want to consider before we decide to amend this. We don't have any objections to including the middle class in there. We just wanted to make sure that we were drawing attention to the fact that it was inequitable, and we want also to accomplish the goal of helping people see that we actually do care about the poor.
Point of inquiry. Hold on.
Point of inquiry.
Am I able to withdraw my amendment?
If there's no objection. Is there any objection to him withdrawing his amendment? No. I hear no objection. Okay.
Therefore, I withdraw my amendment.
Thank you.
I would like to make another amendment.
All right, I'm entertaining this. Go ahead.
It was. One second. So it was just the poor was the original. Cannot be assessed objectively and is regressive. Period. Or does that? Okay, then there's so much question about that one. So the poor, the middle class, the elderly, and the poor. Out of order.
All right,
So
hold
the
on.
motion is as such. The edit is the middle class, seniors, and poor.
That's your amendment.
That's my amendment.
Is there a second to this amendment?
Second.
There's a second. Point of information.
We're here for all of our freedom.
Whoa, that's not.
Point of information. Okay.
It's still going to be debate. It needs to be a serious question that we have information to give.
Okay, point of information. Are we here to select?
So you're going into debate. I'm going to move to another microphone.
Point of inquiry?
Yes.
Does LPTexas acknowledge that the money that I own is my property?
Okay, guys, I am perfectly fine with having debate. That is great. The problem that we're having is that people are using point of information to skip ahead of the line of people who are not. That is the issue here. So that is why we cannot use it for that. If you would like to make a point about why this amendment would be good in that case, there's no need to say point of information. You can just wait in line and we will have debate. That said, we are going to move on. We need clarification real quick.
One time he said seniors, and one time he said the elders.
Mr. Ford, is this correct on the screen? At ease. Hold up, everybody, come to order. It's your call. Is this correct? This is correct, thank you.
Okay, I have a point of information.
Hold up, before we go to that. The secretary needs clarification. We are inserting the words middle class, comma, seniors, comma, and the before poor. Okay, thank you. Now, I heard a point of information.
Point of information. Why should there be different classes? Isn't this subjective, and who sets the levels for how we interpret it?
Okay, so we
Listen.
actually have a comment we were wanting to talk about that.
And I'm not recognizing you. Here's the issue. I'll say it one more time. When we're asking these points of information, it needs to be there needs to be a subjective answer. Is this point number 3? How far into it does it go? Because when you're asking people's opinions, that is debate. So, but I will at this time recognize the committee, and I will take that as debate.
Thank you. So when we were writing this and we chose to put the word the poor in there, we were excluding nobody in this. It was not to say only the poor are harmed by this. It was to point out that the poor are harmed by this. That is all it is. And we could all day long sit here and talk about everybody who is harmed by this form of theft if we want to do that. Now, with that said, I don't mind, and I don't think the rest of the committee minds having this in here, but we've got a lot of stuff we want to cover today.
All right, I'm going to come over here to microphone 1. No. Okay.
I'd like to call a question.
All right, thank you. Hey, sir, can you please state your name for the secretary? And are you calling all pending questions or
All pending questions.
calling all pending questions?
Eric Hansingle.
Eric, okay, you got it? Cool. All right, there's been a motion to call all pending questions. We'll proceed to a vote on calling all pending questions.
Mr. Chairman, point of personal privilege.
Point of personal privilege, yes.
Mr. Chair, it seems like that on just about every motion that's come forward, that someone tries to call or attempts to call the question before any debate has been held either on an amendment or on the main motion. I believe it'd be proper under Robert.
Hold up, real quick.
For you to call for a pro and con on each amendment and each motion before entertaining any motion to call the question.
I understand what you're saying. It is an order, and I will entertain it. It is an order for them to call the question. I would suggest that if you would like to hear debate on it, let's vote these down. That said, we will proceed to a vote on calling all pending questions. All in favor of calling all pending questions, raise your hand. All opposed to calling all pending questions, raise your hand. The motion to call all pending questions passes. We will now proceed to a vote on the amendment. All in favor of adopting Mr. Ford's amendment, raise your hand. All opposed to adopting Mr. Ford's amendment. Oh boy. Let's try one more time. All in favor of adopting the amendment, raise your hand. All opposed to adopting the amendment, raise your hand. Motion fails. Our amendment fails. Now we'll move on to a vote on the proposal. All in favor of adopting the proposal, raise your hand. All opposed to adopting the proposal. That does gain 2/3. Proposal is adopted.
All right, rolling along, everyone. We'll be going to section 11E. This is on page 5 of your report, dealing with tax investment or tax increment reinvestment zones. And I know. So basically, what we're accomplishing in this proposal is something similar to what we're proposing with many of our proposals, and that is we just want to streamline things. We want to clean it up. A lot of what was there, we don't disagree with. It's right, but there isn't really a need in the platform to expand into all the details about what this is, why it's bad, and so on and so forth. So we just want to state clearly and simply that we recognize these TIRZs have been abused in these ways, and thus we call for their abolishment. The platform committee so moves this proposal.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? I do see people approaching the microphone. I'm going to go to microphone 2.
Page 5 of the committee report in your docket, and this is amendment to section 1.
Can we please ask
1E.
members to move? Yes.
I move that we replace the words political benefactors with cronies.
All right. The motion has been, the amendment has been made and seconded. If you're still playing the drinking game, that was your cue. All right. Is there any discussion on this amendment? Seeing no one wishing to be recognized, we can proceed to a vote. Is there any objection on this amendment?
Yes.
There is objection. All in favor of this amendment, raise your hand. All opposed to this amendment, raise your hand. The amendment passes. We can now proceed with discussion on the main proposal. Microphone.
I move to amend, deleting as a means to enrich, and now it's been amended to cronies, but as a means to enrich political benefactors was the original, but now it's been amended.
So you're amending by striking the words as a means to enrich cronies.
Yes, which now may be moot due to the last passage, but not moot, but however, it might have changed the political attitude of this room.
I guess my question is, do you want to make that amendment or not?
I still do, yes.
Okay, please show that on the screen. Is there a second to this amendment? There is a second. We can now proceed to discussion if anyone wishes to be recognized for it.
I'll speak in favor of my amendment. This is just to eliminate verbiage. I think it's kind of unnecessary to say who's been abusing it. It's not good that they're abused, and this can help remove verbiage and cut down on words.
All right. Any other discussion? Are you? Okay, please.
As someone who is in city council and understands how many people do abuse this, it's not just those cronies, it's other cronies too. But I agree with what Kathy changed it. Kathy had it amended too, but I do think we should strike it because it's manipulated in other ways too.
All right. Anyone else seeking to be recognized? Mr. Taylor, please approach the mic.
Yes, I'm perhaps in a minority camp that thinks that perhaps we need to not necessarily look to reduce the size of all the words that we're saying necessarily. We tend to confuse small number of words with small government, and it's not exactly the same thing. So I want to, I like specificity, I like objectivity, and I think that this, as it stands, adds a little bit more specificity.
Thank you. Are you
Point of personal privilege?
Point of
personal privilege from the
Yes.
committee. We'd ask that when people come speak up, they would state their name. That way, if the committee wants to respond, we can address them.
Yes, please. But
Because
you
we
will be
can't see people from up here sometimes. Thanks.
But you will be addressing the chair, just FYI.
True.
You're seeking to be recognized?
Sean Huckabee, Bayer County. I move to call all pending questions.
Motion to call all pending questions. Is there objection? I did hear an objection. All in favor of calling all pending questions, raise your hand. All opposed to calling all pending questions, raise your hand. The motion to call all pending questions passes. We will now proceed to a vote on the amendment to strike the words, I can't see, as a means to enrich cronies. All in favor of striking those words, raise your hand. All opposed to striking those words, raise your hand. The amendment fails. We will now proceed to a vote on the proposal. All in favor of adopting this proposal, raise your hand. All opposed to adopting this proposal, raise your hand. The proposal passes. Thank you.
Point of inquiry?
I'm sorry?
Point of inquiry?
Point of inquiry.
If I wanted to vote on all the rest of the proposals all at once, would it be in order now? How would I do that?
Motion to suspend the rules to consider the remaining proposals together.
I would like to suspend the rules in order to consider all the rules together as you stated.
All right.
Point of information.
Point of information.
So if we make a motion to suspend the rules to vote on everything together, is that going to have any impact on, are we just saying that we're going to vote up or down, and if we vote down on this, that we're not going to get to hear anything else?
If we
How's
vote
that?
down on this, the individual proposals will be separate questions from adopting them all, so we can go back to going through them. All right. There is objection. Point of information.
Is the intention of this motion to look at everything or only the planks that passed unanimously from the committee?
Mr. Hahn?
The latter.
Only, so your intent is only to consider the block that was,
Unanimously passed.
yeah, I don't know if that was clear, so let me ask again, is there a second? There's a second. That was for the last one, so it doesn't count now. Okay, this is not debatable, so, point of information, yes.
Okay, so which ones are not unanimous, and therefore we are going to be still left? That's what I want to know, and what ones are included in this?
Mr. McKinnon?
Here are the planks that are included. Occupational licensing, which that changes on page 5. That is 11F. The rename and streamline of equality under the law, which is on page 7, which is 21D. Speech and religion, the combine and simplify, which is on page 6-7, which is 21A and 21B. Page 10, privacy, which is 23A. Election reform, 24F, which is on page 11 and 12. Also on 11 and 12, 25C, which is judicial reform or informed juries. Page 5, 11G, which is government debt. Most of these are to combine, simplify, or strengthen, just for the record. Also on page 5, certificates of obligation 11H.
Is that all?
That's all.
Okay, thank you.
I have a point of information.
Point of information.
So if we do this and somebody wants to come back and revisit one of these that we vote on right now, are they able to do so?
That would be a motion to amend or to reconsider.
A motion to reconsider.
Yes.
So, is there a way to exclude one of these? At the moment, could we make a motion to amend the motion to exclude a single plank?
We can, but not at this time.
Okay.
All right. With that said, we will now proceed to a vote on suspending the rules in order to consider all unanimously adopted proposals together. This motion will not adopt those proposals. This only asks if we can consider it. So, all in favor of considering all unanimous proposals together, raise your hand. All opposed to considering all unanimous proposals together, raise your hand. The motion to suspend the rules passes. And I will also take that as a motion to move all unanimously adopted planks.
Yes.
And I get the feeling the committee wishes to be recognized at this point for an amendment.
Yes, I would like to make one amendment, if this is okay, to take section 2.1.a, 2.1.b, speech and religion, out of consideration for this particular motion. The committee has been informed that there are people who want to make some adjustments to this.
Okay.
And this is pages 6 through 7.
All right. There's been a second. Do we need any more discussion on the amendment? All right. With that said, we will proceed to a vote on the amendment to exclude the plank mentioned. All in favor of the amendment, raise your hand. All opposed to the amendment, raise your hand. The amendment passes. We will now continue to considering that group of planks that was mentioned before together.
Okay.
Is the secretary clear on which planks we're talking about? I'm just asking if you're clear. You're clear. Fair enough. Is the secretary clear? Good. Okay, secretary's clear. We can move on. All right. Is there any discussion on this motion?
Yes.
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to postpone this motion indefinitely.
Motion to postpone indefinitely.
Point of information.
The motion.
Richard Walter from Denton County.
All right, motion to postpone indefinitely. A motion
Point
to
of
postpone.
information. I'm so sorry to interrupt.
I'm going to get through this first, and then I can take your point of information. A motion to postpone indefinitely has the effect of us not considering it anymore. It requires a majority vote, and it is debatable. Just for the information of the body, and I will now take a point of information.
So I am not fully clear on every single one that's grouped up. While we are having this conversation, could we visually line out exactly which ones are in this grouping so we as a body know what we'll be going thumbs up or thumbs down to in total while this conversation is happening? I know it may not be needed, but for those of us visual learners, it may be very helpful.
Can I speak to this?
Ms. Bailey? Or anyone, it really doesn't matter. Can somebody please approach the computer so we can type out which proposals are on there?
I could say this is already done within the supplemental report, which is a document provided to the public download folder for this. And so do you have that supplemental report available?
I may, but I'm not sure. Alex knows how to get to it, so I'd have to leave and go show
Okay,
it
well,
there.
so if anyone has a copy of the supplemental report, in fact, I might have a spare and I could pass it around. But we grouped within the supplemental report that was available for digital download, part 1, 2, 3, and 4. which corresponds to part 1 is all the unanimous proposals, then unanimous with abstentions, which we're not looking at yet, just the part 1, and then ones with a vote against, ones with minority report. So basically, the effect of the motion that's been passed by this body is to, except for the ones we've already passed, vote as a block all the remaining proposals within part 1 of this committee's supplemental report, except for speech and religion.
All right, thank you. All right, we are now on a motion to postpone indefinitely. Does anyone have debate on the motion? Do you want a point of inquiry?
No, I rise to support.
Okay, please approach the microphone, point of information. Point of information, please. There's not such a thing as point of inquiry. I think you mean point of information. You want to ask a question, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I'd just like clarification on exactly which plank we're talking about right now.
Yeah, right now we're not talking about any we're. All right, well, hold up. I'm going to ask the body to stand at ease for a little while. I'm going to confer with both the person running the screen to get this cleared up on the screen. So everybody, please stand at ease. At this time, would somebody, I think it would probably be proper while we get all this together if somebody wanted to make a motion to recess for 5 or 10.
I motion to recess for 5 minutes.
Motion to recess for 5 minutes. There's a second. Is there objection? I did hear objection. All in favor of a 5-minute recess, raise your hand. All opposed to a 5-minute recess, raise your hand. We are recessed for 5 minutes.
That's why we were going through. You're defining what it is. The first paragraph, you're defining what it is. That's just look very far up. So, but they don't, so they're going for defining it. So this government, this
If everybody can reconvene. If everybody could please reconvene. Are they on the screen? All right, I've been informed by the Credentials Committee that the current count is 165, making quorum 83. And I think we're close.
Request for information?
Request for information.
On the pending question on the postpone indefinitely, is that for all the things that are currently voted on? Can we not go and reconsider all those things being voted on if the postponement passes?
Yeah, and I've been asked that by a couple people. The question to consider these blocks, these proposals as a block, is wholly separate from the question to consider them individually. So the motion to postpone is only going to affect the block of motions. It will not affect going back and individually considering these proposals. I have also been advised by the parliamentarian to rule the motion to postpone indefinitely out of order, on the basis that the exact same thing can be accomplished at the exact same threshold by just voting no to adopt. It really doesn't do anything different to the business. So, we can move back to debate on adopting the proposals. You want to speak against? I will recognize that.
I will speak against, again, Richard Walter, Denton County. I think the committee has done an excellent job at changing, organizing, streamlining, and by far, this is a great document. However, I do also believe that we as this body should have the freedom to be able to look at, change, and alter as we deem fit. I think limiting freedom for the sake of time is part of the antithesis of what we stand for.
Is someone to speak in favor of adopting all these?
I will speak in favor.
Well, hold on. I'm going to go to the committee first. Are you trying to speak in favor of the adoption?
I wanted a little clarification on how we were limiting freedom for the last 2 years.
That's not in order. Okay, I think you're at the microphone first. I'll recognize you to speak in favor.
All right. I want to speak in favor of this because these were out there publicly on the website where you could actually look at this stuff. And this is actually just like minor changes, all approved by the committee. I respect what the committee did, and I really don't like overriding, everybody here and say we don't have the ability to debate, but this is minor stuff. Let's not get hung up on minor stuff, and let's just move on and move forward. Thank you.
Someone to speak against?
I rise in opposition.
Please.
To some folks, a bond issue is a minor thing. To some, it is not. My county has rammed certificates of obligation down our throat, but this language in here would stop my county from issuing needed bonds. There's a difference between bonds and certificates of obligation.
Order.
Is there a point of order?
Point of order. He's addressing the content of the matters that would be voted on, not the motion to vote on them as a block.
Yes, sir. And the reason I'm stressing that is because
I want to get this clear.
Are we now voting on adopting them? Okay. Okay.
I'm going to rule that you're in order.
Okay.
the reason that I rose is because there are issues of importance in here to many, many Texans.
Sir, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to speak in favor of the motion.
Yes, please.
Thank you. I just want to address you, Mr. Chair, because I know I can't address the body. Wink, wink. But we elect our committee members as select reps. When they make decisions unanimously, they are speaking for us. That's what we ask them to do. We task them with this job. So when they come back and they put all this work into it, and then we come back and say, well, I want to have something to do with it, you did. And this is a unanimous voice from the people we tasked with. They're doing what we asked them. It's appropriate to consider all of their unanimous votes as a block and pass it. And sir, I call the question. Thank you.
Thank you. There has been a motion to call the question. I heard a second. We will proceed to a vote on calling the question. All in favor of calling the question, raise your hand. All opposed to calling the question, raise your hand. We will now proceed to a vote on the question. All in favor of adopting this block of proposals? Yes. Okay. All in favor of adopting these proposals, and this will need a 2/3 vote, raise your hand.
Can we do this as a count? I guess we don't have to.
All opposed, raise your hand. The block passes.
All right, thank you, everybody. So we did amend and pull out one of this committee's unanimous proposals for specific consideration. So we'll move to that one now. This is dealing with section 2.1a, and part of the motion is to combine it with 2.1b. So this is page 6 through 7 of your printed delegate reports. And for those who have the supplemental, it's on page 10. So the idea here, first of all, I ask that even though you might see a lot of red, please don't see red whenever you see this. The intention here is, again, we want to strengthen and simplify. We want to, really get down to the principle of the matter and state that in a manner that doesn't use terms and phrases that people impose their own meaning on. Some of the feedback that, let me first say, so again, this is combining our speech plank with religion plank under a single header, word and thought. Because that's really what the principle is, that we believe that everyone has the freedom to their words, spoken or written, and a freedom to their thoughts, what they believe, and how they conduct themselves out of that, as long as you don't break the NAP. So this simplifies it to just 2 paragraphs, which I would like to read for the body. It would say, word of God, LPTexas upholds the ideal that...
Please continue. I think he was asking for the room to return to order.
Oh, thank you. LPTexas upholds the ideal that government should not interfere nor discriminate in matters of personal conscience, such as religion, speech, creativity, or political activity. So that's the first part. We just say, based on these matters, the government should not discriminate for any reason. And then another paragraph, we encourage citizens to practice their freedom of speech liberally in an open marketplace of ideas. Likewise, freedom of thought and belief is essential to a free society. No one may force their own beliefs on others through use of government power or support. The thought here is that the current plank uses a lot of what I felt was negative language. We oppose this, we're against that. When really we should be the party that celebrates our freedoms. We should talk about what we support and what we applaud, and that is free speech and free thought. And finally, before opening debate, I know that some of the points that will be raised and should be discussed here is that there may be certain phrases in the current plank that people feel very strongly about and want to keep. Our thought of, such as separation of church and state. And our thought of taking that out is not that we're against that, but that the people tend to impose their own meaning on certain buzz phrases and words. An example would be the term right. We as libertarians know that a right is something endowed to the individual that cannot be infringed. But if anyone else looked at the sample ballot for the Democratic primary, every single proposal said, oh, Texans should have the right to clean air, free health care. So people impose their own language. We should not use those type of terms in our platform. Not use the misused words so that anyone coming into this from anywhere will understand the message of liberty without bringing in their own misunderstanding of terms. Or their own negativity. So the platform committee so moves this proposal.
I'm going to recognize microphone 2.
Sean Huckabee, Bayer County. Point of information, how much time, two related questions. How much time do we have left till we've reached the end of how we've extended this previously, if we've extended it?
7 minutes.
And how much time do we have before essentially the hotel will throw us out?
I'm not actually sure on that. I know we have the room reserved. We spoke with them about getting the room until 3:30. I don't know if they have another group coming in or that they need it shut down. If anyone is aware of where Laura Valle is or a hotel person, we can ask that question, but I don't have the answer.
I'd like to call the question.
Motion to call the question. I hear a second. There's objection. We'll proceed to a vote on calling the question. All in favor of calling the question, raise your hand. All opposed to calling the question, raise your hand. The motion to call the question passes. We will proceed to a vote on the proposal. All in favor of the proposal, raise your hand. All opposed to the proposal, raise your hand. The proposal passes. How many more you guys got?
Thank you for that. Our next section is going to cover family values and parental guardian rights. It's on page 8.
I move to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. There's a second. There's objection. We will proceed to a vote on a motion to adjourn. All in favor of adjourning, raise your hand. All opposed to adjourning, raise your hand. The motion to adjourn fails. Please continue.
So what we're doing here is we are just merging the two and renaming it. We're merging.
If I can interrupt real quick, can we have the section number for the
2.1.f. That was my next thing coming out of my mouth.
Perfect, I predicted it.
So 2.1.f, 2.1.g. We're combining them. This is page 8. So we are changing from parental/guardian rights to rights of the family. That's the right one. That's all we want here. It's so moved by the committee.
All right, thank you. I will recognize microphone 2.
A point of inquiry. In the event that we are dismissed before this can be arranged, where is Select to meet?
Yes, we are meeting in the same place that we ate all our meals in.
Thank you.
I'm sorry? Oh, you're going to go out of this door, turn right, go down the hallway until you can't anymore. You're gonna come right. You're gonna make a C. West Wind Ballroom is the name of the room. There's a motion on the floor. I'm trying to address the point of information. So, back to the. Are you speaking to the motion? Microphone 1.
I'd like to call the question.
Motion to call the question. Is there objection to calling the question? There's objection. All in favor of calling the question, raise your hand. All opposed to calling the question, raise your hand. The motion to call the question passes. All in favor of adopting the proposal, raise your hand.
Point of information.
Point of information.
Point of personal privilege.
Okay.
Could they please scroll down in this motion, which includes an explanation of this? This may be confusing to the body, that there are 2 separate proposals we're bringing to this. This one's first, it just deals with combining and renaming, and then later we deal with the
I think we're getting a little past the point of personal privilege. All right, we'll now proceed to a motion to adopt this proposal. All in favor of adopting the proposal, raise your hand. All opposed? Proposal passes.
Point of information.
Point of information.
I haven't heard it announced who made it onto the executive committee from the various Senate district caucuses that occurred yesterday. Is this an appropriate time to hear that before we get to adjournment?
I think at this time we would need some kind of motion to do that. Is there any objection to stopping now to hear the names? There is objection. So we would probably need to suspend the agenda to hear that. Well, that's what I'm saying. We need to suspend the agenda.
I think an orders of the day thing could be made in my behalf, because I think there is in the rules, I could be wrong, that we're supposed to announce who wins the executive committee somewhere in our rules. So I guess I'll throw that out. Orders of the day. Let's get back. Let's make sure we've read out who our select members are. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
It is in order.
Thank you.
But not during this item, so we would have to either suspend the agenda or dispose this item.
Okay.
And so do you want to make a motion to suspend the agenda for that purpose, to do that now?
I will do so. Is that something I can speak to after we get done or not?
Motion to suspend the agenda is not debatable, I do believe. Is that correct? Yes, okay. So no.
Okay, I'll do it just because I won't give you my reasons. I'll just do it.
Okay.
I think it's important we do it, so I'll
Thank you.
I move to suspend the rules to make sure this body knows who their executive committee is.
Thank you. All in favor of suspending the agenda to hear the members of the executive committee, please raise your hand. All opposed? That fails to gain 2/3. Yes.
Move to extend time by 15 minutes.
All right. Is there any objection to extending time by 15 minutes? There's objection. We can proceed to a vote if no one seems to be recognized. All point of information. And that depends on what the hotel says, and I don't.
I'm working on that. I'm working on finding out.
Okay.
I am working on finding out.
All right. With that said, we can proceed with a vote to extend time, realizing that if the hotel says we got to leave, we are libertarians and we respect private property. All right. All in favor? Is this privileged? Okay.
Request for information, is this regarding extending the current agenda item or the convention as a whole?
Yes. Both. All right. Motion. Hold on, stand at ease. I'm gonna call that dilatory at this point. Especially since we have a motion to extend on the floor. All in favor of adopting a motion to extend for 15 minutes, please raise your hand. All opposed, raise your hand. The motion to extend for 15 minutes passes, putting us to 3:45.
And now we move to section 2.4b, party affiliation. This can be found on page 10 of your report.
Motion to reconsider.
One second.
Motion to reconsider what?
The blank of speech and religion that they just carved out so they could be amended.
Okay.
Somehow that got skipped. We were up here to make a motion. Didn't get a chance.
How did you vote on that? Did you vote to adopt?
Well, no.
You didn't, so that is not in order. Someone who moved to adopt that amendment has to move to reconsider, because it has to be that someone's changed their mind because they've gotten new information. Thank you. All right, back to the platform committee.
Point of information.
Point of information.
Would it be in order to suggest a motion to vote up or down the rest of the remaining items so we can get through all of the hard work that the committee has done?
We could move to suspend the rules for that purpose.
I move to suspend the rules.
Is there objection? There is objection. All in favor of suspending the rules, and let me make sure I'm clear because there was some confusion last time, to consider all remaining proposals, right?
All remaining proposals in one up and down vote.
All in favor of suspending the rules in order to consider all remaining proposals in one up and down vote, raise your hand. All opposed? That fails to gain 2/3.
So we're modifying party affiliation. As it is on the screen, it streamlines and simplifies. Please pass it.
All right. The committee moves the proposal. Is there any discussion on this proposal? I see. Point of information.
Question. It says that the party opposes partisan labels on the ballot. Is that correct? We don't want Libertarian printed on the ballot next to our candidates' names?
It is correct that it says that. Thank you. Is there any other discussion on this?
Call the question.
Move to call the question. Second. There's objection. All in favor of a motion to call the question, raise your hand. All opposed to a motion to call the question, raise your hand. The motion to call the question passes. We will now proceed to a vote on adopting the proposal. All in favor of adopting the proposal, raise your hand. All opposed to adopting the proposal, raise your hand. The proposal passes. Thank you.
I'd like to make.
Chair, I move to adjourn the convention.
Motion to adjourn the convention. There is a second. Is there objection?
I object.
There is objection. All in favor of adjourning the convention, raise your hand. Point of information, yes.
In the event that we are adjourned, would it be possible to actually put up the select members on the screen so we know who our select members are?
What I can do instead, because I only have about half the list of my Excel sheet at this point, I can read off the names.
Point of inquiry. After we adjourn,
Yes.
we can do that.
I can do that.
Excellent, thank you.
All right. With that said, there's been a motion to adjourn the convention. All in favor of adjourning, raise your hand. All opposed to adjourning, raise your hand. That's close. I'm going to try this one more time, and then we're going to go count. All in favor of adjourning the convention, raise your hands high. All opposed to adjourning the convention, raise your hands high. I think we got to count. All in favor of adjourning the convention, please stand up. I'm going to respond to the point of information that was raised earlier. We now have information. We are not required to leave the room at this time. So that is up to you guys. We'll continue with, actually, I'm going to go ahead and ask for a show of hands because I see some people sitting down. It looks like they maybe changed their minds. All in favor of adjourning the convention, raise your hands. All opposed to adjourning the convention, raise your hands. That's much more clear. We are not adjourned.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, please move to page 13, and that is section 3.
To reconsider.
1 second. What are you trying to reconsider?
All right, the previous motion that was combining all the word and thought, which was 21A, the 21B was not addressed. I did vote in favor of this, but I want to hear what the gentleman has to say.
Okay. I do believe, give me 1 second. Motion to reconsider is not debatable, I do believe. Must be seconded. Motion to reconsider. All right, the motion to reconsider is in order. It requires a majority and it is debatable. So would you like to speak to reconsidering?
I would like to hear what the gentleman has to say. I think it's very important. It obviously is important to him, and I like to hear it.
All right. Could you please state your name for the secretary?
Absolutely. Richard Walter, Denton County.
Richard Walter.
I'm Jeff Adams from Tarrant.
Point of order.
Point of order.
Well, I was speaking and presenting this plank, and you recognized him before I was finished. Is that not out of order? Should I not have been able to finish this first?
Yeah. Okay.
I will yield to the chair on who started first. Is fine with me.
All right. Thank you. We're going to go ahead with the motion to reconsider. You spoke to it. Is there any more discussion on this motion? Yeah, I believe so, but I'll ask again. Is there a second? Yes. Can you please 21A? We got it. We got it.
Mr. Chair, may I be recognized?
1 second. All right.
I have a follow-up to the point of information, and I don't know when would be a good time to work this in case it does come up again in the next half hour to an hour.
Please go ahead.
We technically do not have to be out of this room until midnight tonight. However, we did schedule the West Wind Ballroom where we had lunch for the select meeting only from 4:30 to 6:30. So if this goes much past 5:30, I guess, we might have to move the select meeting to here because we won't have that West Wind for the select meeting anymore past 6 or 6:30. So just letting you know, I'm not recommending we go till midnight. I'm just letting you know, we technically don't have to be out of the room until then. So please carry on. As far as the room space consideration, that should not be an issue, I think. So,
thank you, Ms.
the body. Thank you.
Hold up. There's a bunch of crosstalk. Please, can you please come up here and just tell me? Okay. All right. The gentleman who told Ms. Valier that we have till midnight went and checked with his manager, and his manager corrected him that we have until 5 in here and until 7 in the room where the select meeting is going to go. So there's a correction to that. That said, we can go back to the motion to reconsider. Please.
Regarding 11.1.A speech and 11.1B religion. Somehow in the streamlining, the entire plank of religion was deleted, where it said the Libertarian Party of Texas, LPTexas, supports the principle of separation of church and state, and that there is no freedom of religion without freedom from religion. It does have some additional verbiage after that. My move is to reinstate the 11.1.B religion, including only the first sentence.
Wait, hold on. We are. I already have a point of order to address of my own. Before we can address a motion to amend, we have to adopt a motion to reconsider to bring before the body. So that is what we're looking at right now, if we even want to look at it again. So you can't make a motion at this time. So.
Call a question.
All right.
How about discussion?
Yes, you may speak to it.
Call the question.
You have to be recognized.
The purpose of this is that having discussed this change with the platform committee earlier today, I understand the majority.
Point of order.
Are on board.
Point of order.
We should be only considering the motion to reconsider, not what he wants to do afterwards.
Okay.
He's discussing the platform proposal as it is now. I'm ruling it in order. But can you please step a little closer to the microphone? I think some people are having trouble understanding.
The platform, it was assumed that the platform was unanimous on this, the way it was printed. But in the meantime, the platform is no longer unanimous on excluding 11.1.B, religion. I think the platform committee would speak in favor of reinstating the section I want reinstated.
Okay. I will recognize a member of the committee, Ms. Bailey.
I did not receive the feedback that Jeff is getting prior to us releasing the report, and I would support a motion to reconsider. Yes, only to reconsider this one point, not anything else.
Well, if we reconsider the question, it's brought back up before the body. So just to let you know that. All right, thank you. Any more discussion?
Against?
Please.
As I understand it, as his concerns were specifically addressed by the platform committee as to why they were combining religion with words and thoughts, I would like to call the question.
Thank you. There's been a motion to call the question to reconsider. There's a second. Is there objection? I hear no objection. There's
Point of
objection.
information.
Point of information.
Which vote are we voting to reconsider? The one that separate or that united the two sections, or the one where we changed the verbiage within them? Those were all one? No,
yeah.
We separated those into two separate votes, I believe. So which vote is it that we're reconsidering? Either the one that united the two, or the one that changed the verbiage? Each of those would require, it's my understanding, or doesn't it require two separate reconsiderations to roll the whole thing back?
Do you have an answer to this? Yes. Go ahead.
I don't think we actually changed the verbiage. I think all we've done to it was our proposal. Our proposal was approved to combine the two previous ones. So we've already amended the platform today to read what it says here. The gentleman is now wanting to reconsider what we did there, but we haven't actually changed the words. He wants to reconsider it and then change the words.
Yeah, it was my understanding we just adopted it. Is that
Just
correct?
adopted
Okay.
it.
So we're reconsidering.
I thought there were two different votes.
No.
I may be thinking of a separate item.
We are just reconsidering adoption. There was objection to calling the question. We'll proceed to a vote on calling the question. All in favor of calling the question, raise your hand. All opposed to calling the question, raise your hand. Motion to call the question passes. We'll now proceed on a vote to reconsider. This requires a majority, and it only brings it back up before the body. It doesn't change anything about It's not adopting anything or rejecting anything. Let me just say that. This is, should we consider it again? All in favor of a motion to reconsider, raise your hands. All opposed to a motion to reconsider. Motion fails. Mr. McKinnon, please proceed.
Oh my God, you recognize me.
Mr. Chair?
Is this privileged? Is it privileged?
Motion to extend time by 15 minutes.
All right. There's been a motion to extend time. There's been a second. Is there objection? There's objection. All in favor of extending?
What time would that extend it to?
All in favor of extending time for 15 minutes, raise your hand. All opposed to extending time? Motion fails. This agenda item is complete.
So,
Information.
I'm moving to my next agenda item, correct?
No.
That was only to extend time.
Yeah, it failed. So we're now moving to the next agenda item.
Okay, so the next agenda item,
No. The platform proposal is done. The next agenda item, not the next proposal.
Point of information.
Point of information.
move to reconsider?
How did you vote, Kerry? Well, then you cannot do that. You have to vote it with the prevailing side.
What else, if we're not gonna vote on anything else, what else is left, that other business is left that will remain the same as it stands?
We have a petition that is under other business.
And there's nothing else?
That's the only thing that's been submitted to me, but in under other business, people can make motions if they want. Thank you. Yes.
Unless you have a prejudice.
Move to adjourn?
Hold up. I have not recognized first in line. I have not recognized you. Hold on. I am talking to the secretary. Thank you. Yeah, we can also do election results as well. That was the question, secretary. That was the secretary's question. Anyway, I will now come over to microphone 2.
Move to adjourn?
He was not next in
Yes,
line.
he
That's
was.
what I'm trying to.
I'm going to Roger Gary on microphone 2.
I moved to adjourn.
For anyone who doesn't know, he is famous for adjournments, and I am proud to have him adjourning this convention. All that said, we haven't adjourned yet. Is there objection? There is. I'll do that after. I will be making announcements of select after this motion. All in favor of adjourning, raise your hands. All opposed to adjourning, raise your hands. We are adjourned. Thank you. And I will begin reading the names of the select members.
If Lauren LeCount is in the room, will she please meet me at the credentials table? Thank you. Damn it.
Before everyone leaves the room, I just have a quick announcement to make. If anybody was during lunch anywhere near the registration table, somebody stole the money jar for Abilene. Probably at least $100 to $200 was in there, and that money was stolen. I hope it was not anybody playing a really bad joke on us. But in any case, the 3 jars that were left, the results of the fundraising for that are as follows. $115 for Lubbock, $6 for El Paso, and $59 for Corpus Christi. But clearly, just by visual inspection, the Abilene jar did appear to be more full than the rest, which is probably why it grew legs and walked off and disappeared. So I'm going to declare unofficially that Abilene was the winner.
How about a great big thank you to John Wolford and all that he did. Thank you.
All right, if you weren't tired already, you can hang around and listen to me read off names. I will be going in order of Senate district. Before I read the names, can we have a little bit of quiet? Can we have a little bit of quiet? I just received word that some students in Germany have spent all day watching our convention. So we are reaching world, international audiences. All right, I will begin reading the names of
And as a consequence, they invaded the Saletan room.
I will begin reading the names of select members. Senate District 1, Chris Blystone. Senate District 1, Madeline Kraus. Senate District 2, Nicole Sprayberry. Senate District 2, Edward Maddox. Senate District 3, Anastasia Wilford. Senate District 3, Jennifer Payne. Senate District 4, DJ Howard. Senate District 4, Scott Ford. Senate District 5, Amy Lyons. Senate District 5, Matthew Whittington. Senate District 7, Tom Glass. Senate District 7, Kathy Glass. Senate District 8, Eric Van Single. Senate District 8, Sean Jones. Senate District 9, Liz Scripter. Senate District 9, Renee Perez. Senate District 10, Jeff Adams. Senate District 10, Brian Buford. Senate District 11, Bobby Wayne Townsend II. Senate District 11, John Hogg. Senate District 12, Roman Flutes. Senate District 12, George Reynolds. Senate District 13, Lee Sharp. Senate District 13, David Turner. Senate District 14, Bill Kelsey. Senate District 14, Stephen. Can we lower the volume just a bit? And I will take a drink. All right. Senate District 15, Neil Dykeman. Senate District 15, Carol Unsicker. Yes, if you want to keep your badges or your buttons, go ahead. We'll make a new design next year. Senate District 16, Kyle Russell. Senate District 16, Michael Dooley. Senate District 17, Martin Young. Senate District 17, Christopher Clements. Senate District 18, Andrew Emelang. Senate District 18, Michael Ryan. Senate District 19, Anthony. Senate District 20, Troy. Oh, come on, guys, you're killing me. Keithley? You want to try that one? Keithlin. Senate District 20, Sean Flanagan. Senate District 21, Mark Lowy. Senate District 21, Ross Leone. Senate District 22, Eric Schaefer. Senate District 22, Krista Hamill. Senate District 23, Timothy Allen.
Come back and talk to me 2 meetings from now. We'll see if someone.
Senate District 23, Eugene Flynn. Senate District 24, Joe Burns. Senate District 24, Ben Farmer. Senate District 25, Timothy Martinez.
It is fun, don't get me wrong.
Senate District 25, Chelsea Kendall Meckel.
You will fight.
Senate District 26, Arthur Thomas.
You will literally fight for 15 minutes about.
Senate District 26, Becca Cogden.
It's crazy sometimes.
Senate District 27, Frank Lozano. Senate District 28, Jordan Leinenkugel. Senate District 28, Brad Clardy. Senate District 29, Johnny Smithers. Senate District 30, James Golston. Senate District 30, Jeffrey Connor. Senate District 31, Shannon Thompson. And Senate District 31, Barry Hill. Thank you.